good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are in the world. Ladies and gentlemen, thanks for tuning in to the webinar today. Thyroid Federation International welcomes you across the globe for joining in the webinar. We have people from Australia, from Sweden, from Philippines, Nepal, India. From Africa, we have Nigeria, Ghana, Kenya, France, Sweden, Italy, Spain, Croatia, Bulgaria, Greece, and all other places like Germany, Belgium, US, Brazil on this webinar today. Today is May 25th, and we celebrate it as the World Thyroid Day. It also happens to be our 25th anniversary. Yes, Thyroid Federation International was formed 25 years ago. Congratulations to all who have made this happen. We also kick off our 12th International Thyroid Awareness Week today, which is celebrated all over the world with individual countries holding education and awareness programs. So today, May 25th, has a lot of significance to all of us. As you know, we are going through unprecedented time of the pandemic and are leveraging digital means to join together from across the world today to celebrate World Thyroid Day and International Thyroid Awareness Week, and also our 25th anniversary. My name is Ashok Bhasin. I am your Thyroid Federation International President and facilitator for the webinar today with Dr. Theo Filosan Lewis Jr. from the city of Manila in Philippines, whom I will introduce shortly. First, some housekeeping rules and regulations. The attendees cannot ask any questions verbally. You must use text option on the QA side of your screen. After Dr. Theophilo's presentation, 4 or 5 questions will be asked. We just have enough time for that many questions. Please follow prompts. If you want to join toll-free from your countries on the phone, just click on Go to Join in the green background, and below that you will see Join by Phone Global Call-in numbers. Click that and dial the toll-free number from your country. Now I would like to introduce our eminent speaker, Dr. Theo Filosan Lewis Jr. He did his MD, Residence in Internal Medicine, Research Fellowship in Thyroidology from Berlin, Germany, Research Fellowship in Autoimmune Disease at Gaifu, Japan, did his master's degree in Public Administration, courses on Managing Health Program in Developing World from Harvard University. He is currently the Vice President for Asia Oceanic Thyroid Association. He's involved in Global iodine Network and as an expert in nuclear medicine too. This is, folks, just 25% of what I have to tell you today. In summary, we are lucky to have him as a TFI member and a medical advisory board. And Dr. Theo, thanks for accepting to be our speaker for the webinar today. So I would just like to introduce you, Dr. Theophilo, and it's yours. So before I go there, I want to give the credit where it is due. Without support from Merck Germany and Porto Novelli, the host of this WebEx, this webinar would not have been possible. So thanks to our Merck and Porto Novelli colleagues, we will be putting this webinar on YouTube and our website so that those of who have missed it, they can view it later. So now I would hand it over to you, Dr. Theophilo. It's yours.
Okay, thank you very much, President Ashok Bhasin of the Thyroid Federation International. It's a pleasure for me to be the speaker for the Thyroid Awareness Week, and on the occasion of the TFI's 25th anniversary, which unfortunately we are locked down in our respective countries. And well, be that as it may, it is something that there is celebration that is needed, because we have passed a hallmark, landmark that for every organization, and the way forward is well clear. So the topic that was given to me is on thyroid and pregnancy, and I have put it into a jokingly title of Two Lumps, One Above and One Below. And here, the outline of my presentation will be to provide you with some optics to show the relationship of these two lumps in a woman. Then we will discuss the physiology of iodine, both from the maternal and the fetal side. And then we will look into how the brain develops as influenced by iodine from the moment of conception until 2 years of age. This is a very important stage of everyone because it is the central nervous system, and this is influenced largely by iodine. Then we will provide you with some studies on the iodine status of mothers and the outcomes in children that they bear, and conclude on that note. So let me show you the neck of a woman. So for our purposes, since most of the patients with thyroid problems are women, so it will be mostly, I will be using the pronoun she, because this is the feminine gender is the one that is afflicted most. 80% of our patients are women and only 20% are men. And if a woman has a problem, it could be, it can mean many other things. So the thyroid enlarges by chance. Not everyone will have a problem of the thyroid. It is usually by chance, and this is affected by many other factors like autoimmune diseases, which produce either hyperthyroidism or hypothyroidism, as the case may be, or the thyroid gland may be inflamed, as in thyroiditis. The thyroid gland can also present with thyroid nodules and become cancerous. And then finally, the aspect that I will dwell tonight is on the nutritional, which is the iodine deficiency. So I said by chance because not everyone, not every woman or man will be having these problems. And the consideration is on the relationship of the thyroid gland and pregnancy. And this is what I'm referring to as the lump below. And the lump below is usually by choice. Obviously, we are aware of the fact that pregnancy is usually planned. It is by choice. And if I were the woman with a thyroid problem, I will be very prudent to have pregnancy when the problem of thyroid is resolved. This poster that you are seeing now is one of my favorite posters in the Philippine Goiter Awareness Week some years ago. And it shows to you the silhouette of a woman with a thyroid problem. The neck is swollen, as you can see. It is an enlarged thyroid gland. And there is also pregnancy. And the relationship between these two lumps, if we'll have to put it in a very straightforward manner, is that this is not a good combination. The message that you have, that you're seeing, is translated as brain development of the child is dependent on the thyroid of the mother. And therefore, if a woman has a problem upstairs in the neck, it is not good to have a pregnancy simultaneously. Message is quite clear. Now, this poster, which is very recent, again shows the silhouette of a woman, but now you can see that the neck is flat. There is no obvious goiter, and of course she is pregnant, and that is the optimum condition that we would like to have. This poster is designed in similar way as the previous one, but now you see that the woman is much younger, appears to be much younger, obviously. And this is to address the problem of teenage pregnancy, which is very common. And the teenage pregnant woman may be in the state of denial of her pregnancy. And by the time that the obvious manifestation of an enlarged abdomen is there, it might be too late if there is a problem of the thyroid. And that is why the message is mommy and baby, no iodine deficiency. And that's what we are going to discuss in the next few slides. So let me bring you to the physiological stages of iodine status. This is important for the woman who will become pregnant. And as you can see here, in the state of iodine sufficiency, there is an adequate iodine intake. The thyroid function is normal, and the level of thyroidal iodine store is quite optimal. As you can see, it's very high. But as you go down into depletion of the iodine stores, then you start going into the state of iodine deficiency, where there is inadequate iodine intake. There will be an increase in the thyroidal iodine clearance. The thyroid gland begins to enlarge. The biochemical products of the thyroid gland, thyroglobulin, and of course the TSH, and eventually the thyroid hormone, they all become abnormal. And so we go into what we call thyroid dysfunction. And as you can see, this is the thyroidal iodine store is going to be depleted and depleted. Now, what does it mean for the mother to have this situation? Goiter is very common. In pregnancy, of course, there is this what we call physiological increase of the size of the thyroid as a response to normal pregnancy. So not all goiters are pathological. It is also physiological because this is a response of the woman towards the pregnancy. But goiter among women, very common, especially in iodine deficient areas. There are many countries which are still iodine deficient. I'd like to invite the audience to look into the iodine global scorecard to see whether your country is classified as iodine deficient or iodine sufficient. Now, in pregnancy, the thyroid gland, as I said, increases in size. It can be variable, it could be marginal, or very minimally enlarged, or it can be markedly enlarged. And there is an increase in the urinary excretion of iodine. And that is the reason why the recommended daily allowance for pregnant women should be increased from 150 micrograms to about 200 micrograms. There is the loss of iodine into the fetus. And there will be an increase in the thyroid binding globulin in the woman, which will increase the total T4, but not the free T4. So it is important for the pregnant woman who has a problem on the thyroid to have her examination of the thyroid function test using free T4 and TSH, of course, and not total T4 because of this physiological issue of TVG increase. On the part of the fetus, thyroid embryogenesis, meaning the appearance of the thyroid tissue in the neck, takes place as early as 3 to 5 weeks. And this is a very important consideration because we will see it later on. And on the 12th week, the fetal thyroid starts accumulating iodine and starts synthesizing iodothyronines. These are the precursors of thyroid hormone. By the 18th week, from the conception, there is already the maturation of the pituitary thyroidal axis, and TSH and T4 starts to be produced, and the T3 as well, although these are still extremely low until the 30th week. And the thyroid hormone concentration in the fetus only increases after maturation of the fetal thyroid. We will show you some graphic representation of this event. Now, let us make an inventory of the iodine stores as the woman goes into pregnancy. In iodine sufficient areas, there are about 10 to 20 milligrams of iodine in the circulation and in the thyroid of a woman living in an iodine sufficient area. And if she becomes pregnant, well, there is no problem because she has 750 days of reserve using her iodine stores. But in an iodine deficient area, as you can see, the amount of iodine drops by more than 50%. And if a pregnant woman living in an iodine deficient area becomes pregnant, she has iodine stores only good for 1 to 2 semesters, trimester only, first and second trimester. Beyond which, the problem becomes manifest. So it is important that a woman who plans to be pregnant and is herself iodine deficient should have her iodine intake as regularly as possible using these seafood products. But of course, we do not always want to be eating seafoods every day, and that is why it's important for a woman to be aware that there are sources of iodine elsewhere, from the milk, from the cheese, from the bread, from the strawberries, from the kelp, shellfish, tuna, cod, eggs, yogurt, and potatoes. Now, so many iodine sources. There is, however, the importance of using iodized salt. And of course, this is not the topic, this is not the time to discuss salt restriction in pregnancy, but be that as it may, when a woman has to use salt, it has to be iodized salt. And there are many issues on this, as I will, if we have time, we will discuss this. Now, this is a slide that is, it's a complex slide. That's why I covered the upper part of it. And to show you the major formative events in the human central nervous system development. I'd like to invite your attention on the lower aspect of it to show the time of from conception until birth. And this is the time with which the major parts of the central nervous system develops, starting from the eyes, the face, the corpus callosum, subarachnoid, the striatum, the cerebral cortex. As I'm sure you are aware of the cerebral cortex, the ears, And even after birth, parts of the brain are still developing. Myelination process continues. The cerebellum goes on to develop until about 2 years of age, the hippocampus and all of the other parts of the brain. So I am detailing this because this is influenced largely by the thyroid status of the mother. As you can see, this orange line is from the mother, the T4 of the mother. And up till about 4 or 5 months, all of these central nervous system parts are being formed under the influence of the thyroid of the mother. And when we speak of the thyroid of the mother, thyroid hormone of the mother, we are speaking of the iodine, because T4 is 4 iodine combined with an amino acid. So as you can see, it is only after or on the 5th or 6th month that the child's thyroid starts synthesizing and developing thyroid and forming thyroid hormone. So if the mother herself is iodine deficient and becomes pregnant, in the first 4 to 5 months of it, the baby is exclusively dependent on the mother. And if she is herself iodine deficient, you can see very poor outcomes we will see later on. If you want to see and imagine the brain of an iodine sufficient, this is a animal model, but the brain of an iodine sufficient versus the brain of an iodine deficient, you can see the marked contrast between the upper panel and the lower panel. As you can see here, there is a rich arborization or interconnection of the nerve cells of the brain and the axons and the dendrites in the upper panel in iodine sufficient brain versus the very sparsely interconnected cells and connecting tissues in the iodine deficient brain in the lower panel. And this is important because iodine produces thyroid hormones with very important roles in neurodevelopment. And these are some of the processes that are taking place in the central nervous system development: neuronal cell differentiation, maturation, migration, myelinization, neurotransmission, and synaptic plasticity. As you can see, these are very essential for brain development to proceed optimally. Now, here is this graphic representation also of the woman who takes in iodine, about 250 micrograms per day. The iodine goes into the extrathyroidal pool. Some of it goes into the intrathyroidal pool and is metabolized by the mother. From the extrathyroidal iodide pool, it goes into the milk, and some of it in the urine, and also in the fetus, in the feces, and in the sweat. And this is the milk that is sucked by the infant, who takes in this amount from the milk. It goes into the infant's extrathyroidal iodide pool. Some of it goes into the thyroid, intrathyroidal iodide pool, and is metabolized, as you can see. And the infant also excretes this iodine in the urine, in the feces, and in the sweat. So it's important that the child has to be breastfed, and if there is no breastfeeding, at least the milk formula that should be used should be assured that there will be a lot of iodine in the milk formula, but there is no substitute for infant breastfeeding. We have 1,000 days of opportunity from the moment of conception to birth until 2 years of age, with which we should have our iodine supply to the fetus and to the child that has been born to be delivered. Now, this is the mature brain. You're looking at a mature brain. And thyroid hormone is important for the nervous system. As you very well know, memory, learning capacities, alertness and wakefulness, emotional tone is dependent on the thyroid hormones that we produce ourselves. And the amplitude and speed of the peripheral nerve reflexes are dependent on the thyroid hormones of that we produce in the body. These 4 studies will tell us about the effects of inadequate iodine status in pregnant women and the cognitive outcomes in their children. Children of women with iodine of less than 150 micrograms per liter, this micrograms per liter, were more likely to have scores in the lowest quartile, in the lowest percentile, in terms of the verbal IQ, in terms of the reading accuracy, and in the reading comprehension of the child. And the scores worsen as the amount of iodine excretion from the mother becomes lower from 150 to 50 to 150, and then even lower to 50 micrograms. The conclusion is that iodine deficiency disorder poses risk to developing infants, even in a country classified as only mildly iodine deficient, as the United Kingdom. Another study, this time in Australia, shows mild iodine deficiency associated with reduced educational outcomes in offspring. And this is a 9-year follow-up of gestational iodine cohort. And the study shows that children whose mothers are urinary iodine concentration of less than 150 micrograms per liter had reductions in spelling, 10%, grammar, 7.6%, and English literacy. Obviously, the effect on the child is from the mother's being very low urinary iodine concentration. And the conclusion is that even mild iodine deficiency during pregnancy can have long-term adverse effects on fetal neurocognition that is not ameliorated with iodine insufficiency during childhood. Meaning to say that if a child born with iodine deficiency and now growing and now being fed with iodine-rich food, it might not be able to compensate for the losses of the during the time when the child was being developed in the womb of the mother. That is, you may say, already too late for the child to catch up. Study is now on the vital structure of the brain of the offspring, and this is the hippocampus, which is related or which is concerned with memory. And it has been shown that children of hypothyroid mothers have significantly smaller hippocampal volumes. So the hippocampal volume, the better it is for the child. And it has been noted that hypothyroid children scored significantly below controls in memory indices, objective and several objective memory indices. The conclusion is that maternal hypothyroidism affects offspring hippocampal development and memory. So it should not come as a surprise to mothers who have had problems on the thyroid to have their children having poor memory, and among others, as you can see in the previous studies. And finally, the last study that I'd like to share with you is on the maternal hypothyroidism itself that contributes to the abnormalities in the corpus callosum. Again, this is a major brain structure, corpus callosum, and it has been shown that hypothyroid children have smaller anterior corpus callosum and genu, and in contrast, the posterior corpus callosum is larger compared to the controls, which have large anterior corpus callosum and smaller posterior corpus callosum. And the corpus callosum is very critical in our executive function skills of the child. And this is dependent, the executive function is has a positive association with the genus size in hypothyroidism. Also with verbal comprehension skills. The lesson is that the bigger the corpus callosum, particularly the anterior corpus callosum, the better for the child. So the conclusion is reduced neuropsychological function in children as a result of maternal hypothyroidism. Now, what do all of these studies indicate? Well, it has been shown, many studies have shown that the effect of iodine deficiency on cognitive and psychomotor development will result in an average loss of 13.5 IQ points. 13.5 IQ points is not a laughing matter to be deducted from our child who is enrolled in nursery or preschool. If the child has a 13.5 deficit already, even before he or she goes into school, she is at a big disadvantage. So, in summary, iodine deficiency. We may say, oh, it's just iodine. These are found only among people who are living up in the mountains or in the hinterlands. We are not seeing it in the cities. It is a very wrong conception of the role of iodine deficiency. Iodine deficiency will reduce intelligence. It will reduce the educational capability of children. And as these children grow up and become mature, the productivity is compromised. And so here we have the impact on the Sustainable Development Goals of the United Nations, SDG 3, which is good nutrition and well-being, and 4, SDG 4, which is on quality education. So iodine deficiency is not a small matter. It is something that has impact on the child and as it grows on his outcome as a productive member of society. I'd like to share this cartoon with you. This is the last slide. Tells you about the problem of the teacher who sees her pupil, her student, failing in the grade 3, and it is a repeat of the grade 3, and also the mother who wonders why her child is slow in school in spite of the fact that he tries very hard. Iodine deficiency lowers mental performance is the message. But I'm sharing this to, well, to test also the audience on, can you identify the two errors in these cartoons? If you can spot the, the errors, then you probably are not iodine deficient yourself. This is I'm putting this slide just to cap this presentation and show the importance of iodine deficiency in our mental proficiency. And if you need a clue on this cartoon, it is grammatical. If you need a clue, but if you don't need a clue, I'm sure you have gotten it already. So I'll end with this to show that the iodine nutrition of the child is a vital task, not only in the family, but also in society. The most important source of iodine that we have is iodized salt. And that is the reason why the organization that I represent here in the Philippines, the Iodine Global Network, is promoting the use of iodized salt because it is, we know, one of the key elements in having adequate good nutrition. So I am showing this last slide to show my appreciation. Thanks to the Thyroid Federation International, represented by Mr. Ashok Basheen, for the opportunity of addressing TFI in its 25th year of service to the community. Thank you very much, and maraming salamat po.
Salamat po, Doctor, to you. I will get into some questions right now that we are receiving. This question is from a lady. I am from Southeast Asia. I think she's from India. And iodine in salt has been a long practice in our country. In every salt we eat has iodine in it. What is the limit? And are we over iodizing ourselves?
Over iodizing? No.
Ourselves. Yeah.
The answer is I'll give a short answer, and it's not over iodizing yourself, because you see, the answer is that iodine is not stored indefinitely in the thyroid gland. The thyroid gland is a very efficient organ. It takes in only what is needed, and it excretes what is over the normal. It is not like people who will hoard toilet paper, for instance, during coronavirus. We do not hoard iodine. It is taken in, and it is eliminated. And as a matter of fact, the measure of elimination is what we call urinary iodine concentration. This is a measure of your intake. So there is a correlation between the intake and the output in the urine. So, however, in cases where one receives, for instance, a medical examination using contrast material, as in CT scan, for the instance, then there is a inordinate amount of iodine load in the contrast material that will overwhelm the thyroid gland, and it can produce some problems later on of either hyperthyroidism or hypothyroidism, as the case may be, in the so-called Wolff-Chaikoff effect. But that's a very, we are not usually receiving iodine in large amount like this. except in some medication like amiodarone. It has a large iodine store, and therefore it could be detrimental in the long run. But from the iodized salt that the uh, questionnaire from the questionnaire, we cannot become over iodizing ourselves using plain iodized salt. There are
Thank you.
issues. There are issues in that iodized salt.
Thank you. This is from Eastern Europe. I got some pain in my neck on the thyroid area, but there is no swelling. It comes and goes for the last 3 months. Should I be concerned and check my thyroid as I am 2 months into my 2 month pregnant to my second pregnancy?
Well, obviously, if the woman is pregnant, as she said she is in 2 months, and there is an issue in the neck, and I suppose this could be a inflammatory process because she said that there is pain in the neck. There could be thyroiditis. It can affect thyroiditis can affect the thyroid hormone production, and it can translate as a deleterious effect on the child that she is carrying. So it's better that she has to have a consult appropriately with an endocrinologist to determine whether the thyroid hormone status of that woman is compromised. And if it is, then she has to be treated accordingly. I suspect it is thyroiditis because of the clinical presentation.
Thank you. This is from USA. I have recently discovered that I have Graves' disease. I have 2 children, 3 years and 6 years old. Should I also get my kids checked, as I have heard the children get it from the mother who has Graves?
Well, it's true. I think in the first webinar, this was taken up that the mother with a Graves' disease, and this is what we call hyperthyroidism. There are antibodies that are passed on from the mother to the child, but the antibodies do not survive for a long period of time, and the antibodies disappear in the child. There may be some transient hyperthyroidism because of the antibodies, but the child's thyroid will eventually take on, and antibodies will disappear. Now, the ages that of her children, as you mentioned, is 3 years or 6 years?
Yeah, 3 and 6, yeah.
3 and 6. So by the time there are no more antibodies present in these children, and therefore there is no reason for them to become concerned about having a Graves' disease that it can be passed on to these children. But it's good, especially if the mother has a problem of Graves' disease, to have these children to be checked, because the genetic predisposition can be manifested when these children becomes mature, even for that matter during puberty, especially if these are girls. So it's better to have a consult just to see whether the children will become goitrous themselves, or if the thyroid gland is enlarged. It can be easily assessed in physical examination. There may be some basic thyroid function tests to be done, like TSH or T4, just to be sure that there are no problems at the present time of age 3 and 6. But whether it came from the mother during their pregnancies, no, I don't think this is the association is no longer present.
Okay, thank you. I think we can take one last question. I have 2 months. I have 2 months old twins. but the growth of both look different. I am in remote location of Nepal. We do not have endocrinologists in this area, and I suspect thyroid issues in one of my babies. Please advise, what do I do? I am worried.
Well, Nepal is unfortunately one of the countries with iodine deficiency problems, and I do not know specifically whether she herself is iodine deficient, but coming from a country that is able to be iodine deficient, then she has to take, she has to, well, have it checked that if the babies were conceived while she was iodine deficient, living in an area, uh, she might have she might have a the problem of in the twins, as you will see, is the development of one over the other is better. The other is probably the issue here is whether the child or the children or both of them have what we call congenital hypothyroidism, which can be as a result of the problem of iodine deficiency while they were in utero. And so she said that one child is better growing than the other. So
Yes.
it could be, you know, in the womb of the mother, the child, if the mother herself is iodine deficient, there are two other uh, actors that are participating in this drama. And so one child may be having more iodine than the other. And so it becomes a, you know, it's an anguish situation that both of them were competing for a very limited iodine stores coming from the mother. So it's, well, as she said, there are no endocrinologists in Nepal, in that area, but maybe her pediatrician should be able to advise her on that. I suppose if these children were born, there were what we call a neonatal newborn screening program. I don't know whether it is available in Nepal, but if the newborn screening program, which screens for congenital hypothyroidism, if there are data on that, then it is best that the child, especially the one who is lagging behind, should be provided with adequate thyroid hormone to see, at least to salvage the situation if there is really hypothyroidism on the child that is lagging behind.
Thank you very much, Dr. Theophilo. That was a great insight, and I'm sure our TFI members worldwide will appreciate your time given and the details that you have provided today. A lot of insight. Before I close the session today, there are some important announcements. We have our next webinar on May 31st during the 12th International Thyroid Awareness Week, and our speaker is Dr. Gregory Randolph from Harvard School of Medicine. I wanted to thank Exelixis, Horizon, and Merck KGaA for their support on the International Thyroid Awareness Week, and Porto Novelli on the WebEx support and putting the lecture together for the YouTube. That's all for today, folks. Thank you very much. Thanks everybody for joining in today. Keep the education and awareness efforts going during this week, and most important, keep safe and keep healthy. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much too.